Boker Tov and welcome to the 2025 Homeschool Family Conference. We are on the last day. It always goes so fast, and I'm really excited about this session. Today we're going to talk about how to bring scripture to life as you learn it in its original languages. And how to start learning Hebrew. You can also learn Greek. We're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to talk about how to learn pronunciation and vocabulary and even grammar and all those really hard things that are overwhelming for moms in homeschooling. And we're going to talk about fun ways to do it as an entire family together. So my name is Anne Elliott. I'm the creator and founder of homeschoolingtorah.com. And we have a special guest in the studio as well today, but I'll wait 1 second to introduce him. We are also being sponsored this week by Biblingo. And I'm going to be talking a bit about them today. So I'm not going to go too much into detail at this exact second, but we are just so appreciative of all of our sponsors and all of the amazing hard work that they do behind the scenes to bring you great resources, and we really appreciate them. So we're going to get started today with a verse from Scripture, of course. We're going to read Psalm 105. It says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." And one of the things that I have realized over the years, and this one has been maybe a lifelong thing, that my parents were super great about instilling in us as children, that the Bible is a treasure and not every person on the face of the earth has access to it like we do. Excuse my train going by. We have Bibles on our app, devices. We have Bibles in print. I have an entire shelf of Bibles in multiple languages. We are spoiled rotten. We have had customers at Homeschooling Torah from other parts of the world that do not even have the Bible yet in their own language. And one of the requests that some of those people groups have had for us at Homeschooling Torah is, please teach our children how to read the Bible in its primary text so that they can go out and translate it for people groups and dialects all over our country. But I have an even bigger vision, and that is, I sometimes get frustrated when I'm reading my Bible. For instance, even right here in Psalm 119, I have some Hebrew words written in next to the English words, because most of the time, Hebrew is just so much more rich, so much more understandable. It's understandable to even a child better than English. And I get so frustrated because sometimes the translators take the same Hebrew word and translate it in a multitude of ways into English. And I'm like, I wish I could read it in the original and not have to go through the NIV and the New King James and the NASB and the ESV. I just want to read it like it really was back then. I know maybe that's too big of a thing, but that's what I'd like to get to. And on top of that, I would love it if we could communicate with other people all around the world. And I know it says in the book of Revelation that people from every tribe, every nation are going to come and worship Yeshua together. How are they going to do that? Well, it tells us in Zechariah that we are going to be doing that because he's going to restore a pure language to the people. Okay. So at Homeschooling Torah, we have a goal. We have been talking about the 4 pillars that Homeschooling Torah is based on, and today's day 4. So let's talk about the 4th pillar. Homeschooling Torah believes in family-friendly ways to read and study the Bible in its original language and context. It's a big mission, and it's something that we are still working on. I am not an expert in Hebrew. I never graduated from college. My husband went to Bible college. He learned Greek. But neither one of us ever had Hebrew in college. But since we started to understand the Torah a little bit more, starting around 2006, 2007, it has been a mission and goal of ours to start to learn the original languages that the Bible was written in, both Old and New Testaments. And then in 2020, I fell down the stairs. I had a really bad concussion, a traumatic brain injury. I lost all of the Hebrew that I had learned. And that was a terrifying thing that day, that I remember looking at an aleph and a bet and not remembering what sound they made. I'm like, what? what's going on? And evidently the place I hit on my head knocked all the vocabulary and sounds out. But I have been working, don't worry, I've been getting back into it. I had purchased way back 15 years ago a big stack of vocabulary cards from Zondervan, and there's 1,000 of them. And I go through them, and I've gotten back, I've learned a lot of them back. Every day I try to learn a new Hebrew word and try to continue to work on my Hebrew every day. But I am old. My brain doesn't work as good as it used to. And I see the next generation of young minds that can pick up Hebrew quickly, being able to absorb it quickly and being able to pick up the baton and go further than what I can even go. But one of my concerns before that injury, we were working on word power curriculum, and we wanted to have Hebrew integrated throughout all of our language arts curriculum at Homeschooling Torah. And that's still our goal, but it's been difficult because I am not the Hebrew expert and my brain just doesn't work as quick as it used to. So this summer, I got an email from a guy, and his name was Austin. And it says, hey, we have this app and we teach Bible, or we teach Hebrew and Greek in the original, scriptures. We use the Bible completely to do this. Would you be interested? I almost hit delete to that email because we get a lot of emails. And I'm like, I pause for a second. I'm like, wait a second. Would I be interested in learning Hebrew using the Bible? Yeah. I wonder what this is. And he said it was for homeschoolers. I'm like, it's probably competition. And then I reached out to him like, sure, I'll listen to your little sales spiel. And wow, I was so impressed. Actually, between the time that he emailed us and the time that we got on a sales call together, I was like, wow, I'm really impressed with this curriculum. I actually signed up ahead of time and I was checking them out. And now I have the Biblingo on my phone. And I started at the very beginning because I wanted to really see what they had, just as if I had come in from never knowing any Hebrew at all. And I've learned a ton. I learned things in their beginning lessons. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Anyway, I'll be quiet and introduce you to Austin Curtin. He is the homeschooling, consultant from Biblingo. I'm going to read to you his actual bio here so that you can get it straight from him. And it's pretty awesome. So Austin is head of homeschooling for Biblingo. Before working at Biblingo, he taught for 3.5 years at Jewish day schools, elementary and middle school, and for 1.5 years as an English language teacher in a Title I public school, which is a high poverty district. He is also an adjunct professor at Grand Canyon University in their College of Education, and he teaches literacy and language acquisition coursework. He's raising his 2 children multilingually, like seriously, Spanish, Greek, Hebrew. It's so cool. With his wife, Rachel, and his favorite activity is singing scripture in Hebrew and Greek with his family. So Austin, just thank you for coming to our conference. We appreciate you, and I can't wait to hear everything that you have to tell us today.
Thanks for having me, Anne. It's a real blessing to be here.
So introduce yourself more than that bio. How in the world how did you become a teacher at a Jewish day school? How did that happen? I'm so curious about that.
Yeah, so once I graduated with my master's degree in early childhood education, I had my bachelor's in business management. And when I started in corporate America, I didn't like it at all. So while I was trying to find a new job, a friend taught at a alternative school. And so I started working there for a little bit while I was looking for another job, and I fell in love with teaching. So I went back to get my master's in early childhood education. That year, my wife and I got married, and we were, right as soon as I was graduating, we were going to be moving to El Paso, Texas. I know I saw some people that said they're from Texas. So I didn't know anyone out there. It was kind of the midpoint between my wife's family and my family. So applying for jobs, I was applying for tons of Christian schools. I was not getting any kind of callbacks, but I got hired at a Jewish school. So it was at a conservative synagogue, and I was teaching first grade. So that was my first foray. I also, when I moved to Phoenix with my family, I taught at a Chabad Lubavitch school for almost half a year. So it's just kind of where the Lord put me. I tried working in Christian environments too, but I just always was put in Jewish ones.
That's so cool. So, what do you think is the difference between how children, first graders, learn Hebrew or learn everything compared to grown-ups like me, like old ladies?
Yeah, no, I mean the neuroplasticity thing is a thing as well. Children's brains are more primed to learn language, and it's much easier for them to learn it in just a natural kind of sponge-like way compared to an adult. With an adult, our sound production is pretty ossified by the time we're an adult, so it's very hard for us to make those noises. Oh, sorry, someone said closer to mic. Here, I'll move my mic a little bit. Sorry, one sec. It's much harder for us adults to create those new sounds, like, especially in modern Hebrew, some of those guttural sounds are a bit harder, but, like, even with some of, like, how the Yemenites pronounce, like, they pronounce the ayin like "ah," and, like, and kuf like ka and stuff like that, so that's very hard for someone who's not been exposed to those sounds. So as a child, you have that ability much more. And I feel like as children too, especially with the ones who were Jewish at this day school, there were non-Jewish students as well that would go. But they would just be singing in Hebrew all the time, and so I feel like that kind of organic way of being exposed to language, where it's not you're just sitting down breaking your head trying to learn um, the Aleph Bet or learning the Binyanim or things like that. It's much more just like a natural process for a child, and especially in a primary school. It was a project-based learning school, so it was just very much organic and natural, and just the part of the school culture, I would say.
It's pretty awesome. So, we are a group of homeschoolers, and a lot of us, most of us, did not grow up hearing Hebrew. And almost all of us, like I grew up Baptist, we have all kinds of denominational backgrounds here. And in Christianity, at least where I grew up, there was a high regard for Israel, but we didn't really understand very much of Israel. We didn't really
Mhm.
know much about what Israel's history is, or certainly didn't understand the Bible using kind of a Hebraic mindset. And so we don't have this culture to surround and immerse our children into. Many of us are coming into it and saying, "Can I make some challah bread for Shabbat?" We don't even know how to say anything. We don't know how to make the sounds. And so, do you have? I know we're going to talk about
Mhm.
Biblingo, but are there any suggestions for homeschooling moms and how they can help immerse their children into a new culture?
Sure, great question. So, um, like you said in my bio, language acquisition is kind of my passion, I guess you could say. So with my family specifically, so we have two children. Our daughter Alethea is 3, and our son Raphael is 1.5. So they have been exposed to from birth a modern Greek, Italian, which is what I speak with the kids, Spanish and English. Hebrew more so they'll start learning in like kind of like a school sense, but I don't have a very high proficiency in modern Hebrew. So the whole thing though with language learning is you have to have comprehensible input, which means that you are understanding what it is that is being said to you. So, for example, when we're children, we learn what a ball is because someone pointed to the ball and said ball. Eventually, we learned what throwing was because someone said the word throw when they were doing that action. So then we learned to say throw ball. And eventually it just builds to I threw the ball, my cousin threw the ball at me, and so just from that base word over time and with comprehensible input, you've slowly added things to that word. So with language learning, even when you're even a little older than a child, it's no different. You have to have some kind of um, input that you can understand. So in regards to learning Hebrew, for example, because a lot of families do not, speak Hebrew already, or they might not be in a place where it's spoken a lot. Like we play in the messianic space. We play in lots of spaces in my family, but the children have been around Hebrew since birth as well. So one thing that I would suggest is, Jewish liturgy is chock full of scriptural songs and things like that. So I would say really start just playing that and throughout the day start singing with your children. With my children we sing Ashrei, which is Psalm 145. Ashrei Yoshvei Vetecha. So having that all day, the child is being attuned to the sounds of the language. each day I know you do this too. You have kind of like a word of the day that you do. So I do that with the kids as well. So just those little things that can be comprehensible to them. Playing games with your children, putting a post-it note on everything that has the color red on it, a dome. So just putting that on different things. So these little things, music, games, word of the day, all of these things can build into enough comprehensible input where the child is starting to be able to um, understand and be able to read and read these languages.
Awesome. I'm hearing you okay. Is everyone else hearing you good?
I'm putting the. I'll try to be closer to the to the mic. I'm sorry, everybody.
Good. You're good. I have these on. So, but it sounds good to me. So, when I first went into the Biblingo app, one of the things that there were several things that made me just so excited. I'll say this one first. There are little like short movie clips. So when someone sits, you can see a girl in, Bible costume sitting. When they flee, they're running down the hill, and it really has made a difference. I have tried pretty much every language learning app there is, and I have way too many Hebrew textbooks on my shelf. A little bit of a addiction to buying new Hebrew tools and resources. But I've done Pimsleur and I've done Duolingo and I've done all kinds of them, drops and, all of them. But one of the things I really appreciated about Biblingo is that it had these little action things in it. Can you tell us a little bit more about Biblingo and why you guys started and what you do and what, just go ahead and tell us about Biblingo.
Yeah, sure. So the idea behind Biblingo is that we wanted some kind of one-stop shop for learning the biblical languages, because obviously it's a very overwhelming thing for a family who has this desire to teach their children the biblical languages when they themselves, don't have those skills. So Biblingo is pretty much the only developmentally appropriate app, I would say, for all learners to be able to start with nothing, and then by using the program with fidelity, being able to read the biblical languages by the end. This so depending on what schedule you'd want to do, we suggest a 15-minute a day or a 30-minute a day schedule. If your child is able to progress through all 52 levels of Biblingo without needing to review any level, like, because we have end of level assessments that will come out as well. Right now we have levels 1 through 5, but you'll be able to assess your child's learning of Biblingo even if you don't know Hebrew. So we have these literacy assessments that test their comprehension, their reading fluency, their word reading, their vowels, and all those different things. So you'll be able to track those. But if they go through all of that without needing to pass over anything, it would take approximately 5.5 years if you're doing 15 minutes a day. But I mean, most people would not be able to do that. But so we have a really huge focus, unlike other language learning apps, on reading comprehension. So, like you mentioned, we use the Bible for teaching biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek. We'll have Latin and Aramaic next year. But once students are comfortable enough with the language, about maybe halfway through the program, they'll start to actually be just reading portions of scripture for their reading section. So there are different types of lessons in Biblingo. There are word lessons where you're just exposed to 6 vocab words. There are sentence lessons, which take in words from past lessons and put those words into sentences. And then there are those story lessons that test your comprehension. So eventually it's just all, the Bible. And you might be reading part of Deuteronomy and saying, where is the Torah? It is not in heaven, it's with us. And these questions are in Hebrew as well. So it's totally immersing you in the language. And all homeschoolers have access to a like a Bible integration that has tagged text, where if you don't know what a word is, you can click it and it will tell you what the word means, and if it's a noun, and all of the lexical information. And it has an audio function as well, so you can listen to it. And it tags it too. Like, if you've been exposed to this word in a Biblingo lesson, it will be the color yellow, and if not, it's the color blue. So we just want to have a full one-stop shop solution so that people can learn the biblical languages and just not have to collect from a bunch of different other resources.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Yeah, the first time I got off the phone with you, I went and looked at it. I walked out and talked to my mom who lives with us. And I said, Mom, it's so sweet. And then I talked for like half an hour. I was so incredibly giddy. Guys, I don't endorse that many things, but I really, really love Biblingo. Another thing I love about it, and maybe this is just my geekiness, it probably is. It's not so much the immersive side, but from an educational side, I'm a huge phonics proponent. I love phonics. And besides the fact that as we've been developing curriculum, I've noticed how children with special needs, for instance, phonics just really helps them to understand language and to be able to attack any word. So before Hebrew, okay, I'm going to take you guys all to just the Bible itself. The Bible uses a lot of words that are not being used in 2025 in, texting and in pop culture. And so our children, if they're stuck in front of a TV all day, which I do not recommend at all, but let's just say that they were just listening to us talk, they're not going to hear words like iniquity and oppression and precepts and statutes and commandments and everlasting. These are not words that are used in everyday language. So a child, if they're learning from sight words, they're going to get the most popular words in our culture, and they're going to be able to identify them by their shape and be able to read them. But if they learn from phonics, they can sound out syllable by syllable and learn to read any word in the English language. But then when I found out that Hebrew has a phonetic basis to it, that we learn by syllables, and that then the Masoretes restored these vowel sounds to us because we are dispersed to the nations. We don't know what the vowel sounds that were used. So this is a good way of we can understand how to pronounce something, even if we don't live in the culture, at least better. I was tickled pink to log into Biblingo and see that you could choose to have the vowels right there underneath it. And then my brain went, oh, wow, we could integrate this completely into our word power and our language arts curriculum so that as students are learning vocabulary, well, in our curriculum, we take the English word, we learn the vocabulary by looking it up in the dictionary, and then we take it back etymologically. Is that a word? We take it back to its beginning, and we found out, where did that word come from? It didn't just show up from the Germanic tribes. It had an earlier beginning, and the Bible tells us what that beginning was. It was the Tower of Babel. So if we can trace those roots back and learn what was it originally, and Greek and Hebrew are so closely related in etymology. So it's just super cool, even as we learn Greek. And I honestly hope that our students will, as they get older, will also learn Greek so that they can learn all of the scriptures. And yeah, I didn't realize you're going to have Aramaic. Wow, this is so cool. But anyway, I just want to emphasize to all the people listening that this really, really closely integrates with what we're already trying to do at Homeschooling Torah. And then it also takes a huge load off of Anne Elliott's plate. And I don't have to be the expert and have to have all this language down. I can send you guys to an app that already has it, and we can work together. And I'm just so excited. So would you like to show us inside? Can you do that? Can you share a screen or anything to show us inside? All right. Do I need to get off camera for that and make you full screen?
Let's see.
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I just clicked the wrong button. Hold on. I'm going to get him back here. Sorry about that. There you go.
I'm checking on my stream as well, so you can so just to check to see if it's on screen, or if people could say if they can see it or not.
It looks good on my side.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Alrighty. So this is the inside of the app. So on the home screen, it looks pretty much the same whether you're on a phone or tablet or your computer. So each account holder has a metrics area, which kind of like Duolingo. You have your streak. You don't want that to go to 0, although it happens more than I'd like for myself. How many words you've learned in Biblingo. So there are 52 levels currently. Mine looks a little bit different because I have to, make curriculum and things. So I have to have all the lessons levels unlocked. So there are 52 levels currently. And then 43% of the Hebrew Bible I'm able to read based on the vocab I know. So just to show you guys kind of a little bit more what I was talking about, how in the app we teach things like phonics. So the first 2 levels are more focused on learning the alphabet. So if we go into alphabet symbols A, it'll give you maybe 4 or 5 different alphabet letters or vowels that you will form into a word eventually. So this is Aleph, and it doesn't really make a sound unless it has a vowel under it. So it's just, and if you want to click this, you can hear it again.
D.
D.
M. A.
So this is our first vowel point. So this makes the sound ah.
Ah.
Now it's under the letter Aleph, so now it makes ah again.
Dam.
Oh, here's our first syllable. So we got dam, which is blood.
Adam.
And our first word, our first full word, well, dam is our word, but with the pictures, Adam. So Adam is a human being. If you're unsure of the word, Biblingo has this little book icon here, and it will tell you the lexical information. So Adam is a human being.
Adam.
Beyond this learn stage, which is just the learn, practice, mastery, master is kind of like I do, we do, you do. You know, you first show the child how to do the thing, you practice with the child, and then when you have them do it themselves, they're producing. So we're doing the same thing with Biblingo. So now I got to find out where Adam is. Now I already can read Hebrew, so I know it's number 3, but maybe your child is 3 years old, like my daughter, and she does not read yet. So you can click the speaker.
Adam.
Adam, and yep, that's Adam.
Adam.
So it can accommodate a wide variety of students. If you want to do this whole group, you could have this up on a smart board or a projector, and you can be doing this with them and saying, is it number 1? Is it
Adama.
No, it's not Adama. Yeah, number 2. And then going
Mm.
beyond that, when you get to the mastery stage, you can choose to type it. So we'll have tutorials on how to download a Hebrew keyboard. You could also speak it. So you could click the record button and say it and compare it. Or you could pick the word or alphabet letter or sound, just like multiple choice like that. Now, just going into some of the word lessons, just to show you kind of that word sentence story progression.
Par.
This is level 3, lesson 3. So we are going to have about 6 words. So par is a bull.
Kohen.
Priest.
Afar.
Afar, dust.
Ama.
Amma, which is like a maidservant.
Shana.
Shana, year.
Sholeach. Et.
Sholeach et. So this is to send. So then we do the same thing. I got to find out which one is dust. So I can click the
Over. Et.
speaker. I know it's afar.
Afar.
So it goes through the same exact progression for all of those lessons. The only ones that might be different are the stories, which I'll show you in a second. But for the sentences,
הילדה אוכלת לחם וזית.
the girl eats bread and an olive. So these words all came from previous lessons. So each new sentence lesson is pulling in vocab from previous lessons that you've already done. So it's just continually bringing back those old words so that you can just continually be building, and not like in American education, unfortunately, a lot of times we just study for the test and pass and then that's over. But with this, it's constantly bringing in those old concepts. And it does
מלך ומלכה יושבים בבית.
for you to practice, and then you can master and say it. And then just to show you those stories, these are leveled texts as well. So it only includes words that you've already been exposed to. So melech umalka yoshvim banahar, melech umalka ochlim banahar. So a king and a queen are sitting in a river. A king and a queen are eating in the river. There's also an audio function too, so you can click that and listen to it.
המלך והמלכה יושבים בנהר.
You can slow it down if you want. And so we have 2 pronunciations. So we have the modern Hebrew pronunciation and then the biblical Hebrew pronunciation. So, I hope to go to Israel one day. And so I do the modern Hebrew pronunciation, but it just depends on what the goal is for your family. And then the comprehension section is asking a comprehension question. So, melech umalka banahar. So the king, a king and a queen are doing what in the river? Omdim, which by implicitly, this is a grammatical concept. Students are not explicitly taught this unless they watch the grammar lessons, but omdim means more than one person standing. omedet means just one girl standing. So obviously it's a king and a queen, so that's more than one person. So they would hopefully know that it would be omdim. And then just to show you where the Bible integration comes in, if you go to this read section, we're in Psalm 145 right now, you're able to listen to the passage.
מזמור קמ"ה תהילה לדוד. ארוממך אלוהי המלך.
If you don't know, for example, like what the word, what would be a good one? Like this one, cheker. Let's click that one. Cheker means examination, search, investigation, and it's a noun. So like I said, if it's yellow, you know it already. If it's blue, you don't. So I know 30% of Psalm 145. And then in Biblingo, it's really cool too, because you can see which passages your child would probably be able to tackle on their own. It's a little slow, but you'll see in a second. So I know 56% of 2 Kings 11. So you could do instruction in that way as well. So from just bare learning to Bible reading. And then I know you guys are very focused on phonics. So if we go to the bank preset decks, we have all these resources in here that also correlate to other Hebrew textbooks and other things like that. There are Biblingo alphabet lessons that just go through that phonics portion for all of the alphabet. So, and eventually I'll be releasing things like children's videos and like phonics drills with motions, and hopefully eventually doing songs and things like that. So that's the big picture of how Biblingo can bring you from not knowing anything to ultimately you're reading the Bible in the original languages.
So sweet. Wow. It's really awesome. Every time I see it, and I have been playing around in the app quite a bit, and it's so exciting. I know I've shared this before with our listeners, but one of the things that blew my mind when I was speaking with all of you at Biblingo is the CEO, the one who first created Biblingo, he said, so how much Hebrew are you teaching to everyone at Homeschooling Torah? And I said, well, we're trying to get 1,000 vocabulary words before they graduate from high school. And he said, 1,000? My 5-year-old knows 500 words. I was like, oh, okay. But see, like that's how small I was thinking. And I thought I was thinking big. And now I'm thinking, wow, let's read, all of the Bible. Let's know thousands and thousands of vocabulary words. Let's know Hebrew, Greek, and let's have seminary trained students before they graduate from high school, at least in this area, but like it's up to families what they want to do and how far they want to go. At Homeschooling Torah, I do have a question for you. At Homeschooling Torah, we also want to have them learn how to copy the Bible. So one of the things that we already have in place is from kindergarten through 12th grade, the students copy huge sections of the Bible in English, and they're copying it in cursive. And like my high school students copied the entire Torah before they graduated from high school. We have them copying the entire book of Proverbs in the New Testament so that they really, really know their Bible. But now my mind is going. For myself, I know I learn Hebrew a lot better when I copy Hebrew verses into my journal every day. And it helps me. I learn grammar that I didn't even know I knew because I'm just copying it straight out. How do you suggest, if students were using Biblingo, is there a way we can incorporate copying into this? And how would you suggest we learn that part of Hebrew?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So part of the support curriculum that I make for Biblingo are going to be activities that are like kind of like alphabet, kind of coloring sheets and things like that. One that I've just been working on and pretty much done with is it's an inscription activity. So they're actually reading a inscription from about the 8th century BC that was during the reign of King Hezekiah. So they were building this tunnel, and it was basically they're cutting through rock to bring water into the city. And so, but it's written in Paleo Hebrew. So the students are, transcribing the Paleo Hebrew into the modern Hebrew script and then translating that. So there will be things like that come along as well. But if you're interested in them being able to copy, because I'm sure you want them to be able to do the whole write a whole Sefer Torah for themselves by the time they graduate.
Awesome.
Yeah, what I would suggest, I would probably just divide however many verses there are whenever they start. That would probably be the easiest. But I mean, even daily, you could just have them, whatever portion it is that they're maybe, like, I don't know how many of the families just follow along to like the weekly parsha of just cutting it up
Most.
that way. But luckily with the Bible integration, they do have it right there. And so they could just screenshot whatever portion it is that they want to copy and, enlarge it. But yeah, writing is the hardest form of language to produce, even more so than speaking. So I think that's an awesome goal to have. But I hope that answered the question.
Oh, that was great. Those are great ideas. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's right there. They have the Tanakh in the Biblingo app, and they can, as they're learning, like you said, it defines words that you haven't heard, which is really, really nice, really helpful. So, okay. So if you were a brand new homeschooling mom, I'm talking, you never homeschooled a day in your life. You're just pulling your kids out of public school and you hear all this stuff. How do you, okay, and I know your wife has little ones as well, so you can put yourself in her shoes as well. You're a busy mom, you're taking care of little ones, you've got everything housekeeping to do as well. What are some ways that these busy families can get 15 minutes? I know that sounds really short, but what are some tips on how to make sure that you make it a priority?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, just like how the scripture says to number our days to get a heart of wisdom, I believe.
Yes.
So we do a lot of visual schedules and things like that in my family. So whenever you're adding in a new routine, it's always going to be difficult, and sometimes there will be that resistance there. But consistency is key with anything. So if you find that your child is maybe more excited right after lunch when they've been fed and happy, do it right then when you can. So I mean, it's going to, obviously your children better than anybody, so you'll have to discuss and plan what might be the best time for that. 15 minutes, it depends developmentally. For a fourth grader, that's probably not going to be too hard, but for like my children who are 3, it might be a little bit more difficult. So that's why we might suggest different things for those children. So for example, my child who's 3 might not be able to make it 15 minutes. So that's just our suggestion for using it in like an official homeschool context. But even if you just do like the words section in each of the levels, that might only take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So whatever is manageable for you without frustrating or exacerbating your child is what you should do. So but we're trying to make it as fun as possible. And, having a background in education, we want children to feel internally motivated. We don't want to externally motivate them with honey or money or prizes. Although those things are good, we don't want them to be the main motivation behind why they do things. So we'll have things like where the child will be able to like color in when they've completed a lesson, they check it off in the implementation guide and things like that. So I would say it's really important to just get a consistent schedule. Developmentally, if they're very young, a visual schedule is the way to go. But it's kind of a family decision. Whenever you think would be the prime time, that is kind of when you should try to hit it. And eventually they'll be ready and excited, and it'll just be second nature.
A little bit like I've noticed with my own children, it's a little bit like piano lessons. I started them in piano lessons. I provided the external motivation. You are practicing today, but not really. Very soon they get a song they like, and then they are motivated to learn that song, or maybe there's a recital coming. But then after 3 or 4 years of doing piano lessons, suddenly they can play. They are more proficient than I am, and they can just sit down and just do amazing things. And there's no more of mom having to nag. They just like to do it as a hobby. And I think it's really similar. I wanted to say also for myself, when I first got the Biblingo app, I was thinking to myself, I have a lot going on in my day. I've got to work. I've got homeschooling myself. We've got, all kinds of things. I'm a pastor's wife. All of this it's just crazy busy. So I'll do Biblingo at 10:30 at night right before bed. And I just have to say, that's probably not a smart idea. I think it should be moved to like you just said, after breakfast or after you just had some food and you're not so exhausted, because it's very hard to learn a language when you're tired. Do you have any more ideas for that? Like how does that work with language acquisition? What is a prime thing for like neuroscience even? What's the best way to learn a language and help it stick?
Yeah. So that's also bringing in like a kind of a psychology question too, because when you have Maslow made this pyramid. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's this pyramid, a different color tiered pyramid where on the bottom there are things that you need for your bare survival, like, food, water, sleep, and then that builds onto like physical security, and then belonging, and ultimately it leads up to the top, which is self-actualization, where you're a productive, balanced human being that doesn't have any like pressing needs that are making you animalistic. Because I mean, that's what happens if someone does not have food. They pretty much are acting out what um, you know would be considered maybe like animalistic or
Violent.
hard behavior. Like working in a inner city school, a lot of kids had very horrible homes and they didn't always have food, and it was just they live around violence, and so that's just kind of what they do. So going from that extreme example to a homeschool setting, the child needs to obviously be fed, not tired, all of these things, which are even very hard to do, just like even in my context. I mean, this is summertime and it's just like sometimes it's just very difficult for children to be rested and to eat, picky toddlers and everything. But one thing I will say, um, like what I said with comprehensible input, as long as the child is understanding, like with Biblingo, we have pictures and videos that go along with everything. So the child sees the picture um, of the grass, and it says Esiv, so that is Esiv. So um, I don't want people to think that Biblingo is going to be maybe something not developmentally appropriate for their child, because it is. It's very intuitive and very engaging, and just really immersing them in Hebrew or Greek or whatever they're studying. So I would say most of all, it's just important for the child to associate learning Greek and Hebrew with something that brings them joy, their family joy. Is my daughter's 3, and I'm like, you're learning the same thing that Moses was speaking. When you're learning Greek, you're learning what the apostles were speaking. This is going into a whole different subject, but a lot of scholarship nowadays is saying that Jesus was speaking Greek as well, because a lot of the things in the Beatitudes, they say textually, it doesn't seem like it was a Hebrew or Aramaic translation into Greek. So this is original. So I'm building in that emphasis, that pride, just like how the Jewish community, after they finish, like with my kids, after they finished like a part of the Talmud, they had a huge party, and like this is a big deal. So just bringing in that kind of culture to our homes is something really that we need to maybe take some notes on. And just I had taught 5th grade boys at the Chabad Lubavitch school. They were reading Hebrew. Some of them spoke Yiddish. They were translating parts of the Gemara, the Talmud, and from Aramaic, and reading English. So they had this culture of, we want to know what our tradition says, and we want to know God's word. So it's the same thing with our families. It's building excitement, building pride. This is our rich linguistic and scriptural heritage, and so we really need to take a hold of that, so we can pass that to them and then to their children and Leolam Vaed.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
And this is a question I received from a mother this morning.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, as you're a professor in a college,
Yeah.
if we are training, not all children will go to college. Some of them want to go into the trades or some, just a variety of circumstances. But for those who need a good, solid transcript and want to go to college, I know some colleges aren't even caring if you have 2 languages or 2 years of language in high school, but it used to be the thing. You always had to have 2 years of language. And is it possible to use Biblingo in that way? And if so, how would you recommend for a high school student that they turn this into an actual subject that could be put on a transcript?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's something we get often. So, one piece of good news for the families listening. So, we've recently partnered with SCU, which is Southeastern University. I believe it's in Florida. We Students can actually get college credit for Biblingo through SCU by completing and receiving a certificate from us to show that they've fulfilled that language requirement, like you're talking about.
Cool. I didn't know
But
that.
so, that's something that we've been working on. I'm trying to get into GCU as well because, I work there, so I'm trying to get that to be a thing as well for GCU, Grand Canyon University. But I think because each state is so different, so I don't want to speak on something that I'm not so familiar with. Each state has such different requirements that I think it would just be something on an individual basis. Like even for ESAs, like I don't know if that's even come up in
Hmm.
the conference, but each state has such different requirements for the ESAs. Some of them, like where I'm from in Arizona, you get that $6,000 to $7,000 just for breathing. You don't have to be in a failing school district. Your child doesn't have to have already gone to public school like some of the other states. So um, I would really just it would have to depend, I guess, on the school district and what it is. But I mean, you see the testimonials on the Biblingo homeschool page. The one was like, my son has learned more Greek on Biblingo than French in his school class. So
Hmm.
we
True.
would definitely be able to provide kind of certificates of completion as well. And for the family's purposes as well, you'll be doing those assessments to test their comprehension of the material. And so those are all things that can go into explaining to the school, hey, like we've been doing these assessments for 4 years and have been tracking growth. And so he or she knows this language and should fulfill the requirement. So that's what I would say in that regard.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Well, I think I'm running out of questions, so I'm going to ask Kirsten, and I'm just throwing this at her right now, so we'll give her a second and see if there are any questions that other people have had while we've been talking. Any things that, if you have a question and you haven't typed it into the chat yet, definitely do. And I think the only other thing I do want to ask, because I got an email about this one last week.
Mhm.
One of the moms, if you could just take 1 second to explain to us what is the difference between modern Hebrew and, I mean, I have an answer, but I would like to hear yours, between the
Yeah.
modern Hebrew that they could choose on the app or the more, what they call biblical Hebrew. What is the difference between the two?
Great question. So modern Hebrew is basically what the state of Israel kind of adopted as the official language pronunciation. It's biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew are not so different. So for a common example would be the letter resh, which in modern Hebrew makes a sound almost like a W. Like in the word like want in modern Hebrew, it's rotze, like it's like RTZ EH rotse. In biblical Hebrew, it would be rotse. So they pronounce it more like in biblical Hebrew, like a kind of like a Mediterranean R, like in Italian. So
Yeah.
that would be an example. There are other letters that have a different pronunciation in biblical Hebrew. The letter ayin at the end of Yeshua, we say Yeshua, but in biblical Hebrew, that makes a sound like ya. So Yeshua, or the
Mhm.
letter like in like kadosh, that first letter that makes the k sound would make like a q sound, like ka ka ka. um some of the other letters have a different sound. So I mean, I usually try to go with modern Hebrew because that's what people actually will speak in Israel.
Exactly.
But
Mhm.
biblical Hebrew is more like maybe what some like people who are Yemenite, they still retain that kind of biblical pronunciation and how they speak Hebrew nowadays. So those are the main difference. So it's really just a couple of letters that have just a little bit of a different pronunciation.
Okay, so maybe tomato somewhat in that sense. It doesn't matter too much. And maybe if they're in a congregation and their congregation uses a certain style, that might be better, because then they'd have that the people around them in real life would be speaking it with that way. So
Right.
yeah, if I were choosing, I'd go with what my congregation was learning, and so that's cool. All right, Kirsten, do we have any questions from those who are attending that we should? Yeah, she's got one. What age do you suggest integrating this into our homeschool? Well, I have an opinion, but let's hear yours. What do you think? I think I know what you're going to say.
So like how I said, my daughter is 3 and she starts. So my daughter has been doing Greek mostly. But she already speaks modern Greek, so it's been a little bit easier for her. But our CEO, Kevin, his son started when he was 4. We technically say, as young as 3, they can start, because it's very intuitive. They learn to click the speaker button if they don't know how to read the word. And so really it can start whenever you want. So if one thing I do want to say to the families too, if you want to just discuss with me your specific situation, say, hey, I have, like, my son has ADD, he's 5, and my daughter's dyslexic, I would love to work with you on a plan that would work for you. So if you go to biblingo.com/homeschool, there will be an area where you can kind of say, like, schedule a chat with Austin. So that's something I want people to know as well, that I'm a resource for them. I am still a teacher, was a teacher, so I want to be able to support people in that way. But honestly, whenever you're ready to get started, they don't have to be able to read in English already to start learning Hebrew or Greek. So whenever, the earlier the better, is what I would say.
That's pretty awesome. I 100% agree. And at Homeschooling Torah, we integrate Hebrew already into our kindergarten word power. So as they learn each letter of the alphabet, they're also learning each letter of the alphabet. And and then as you go into word power 1 and 2, we would teach them how to do the syllables and how to read in both languages. But it is difficult, and has been difficult for us in word power, because we have the majority of our time is spent on English, and then they get introduced to a Hebrew word, and by the time the next week comes, they've forgotten it. So we are putting together a separate Hebrew thing, which is mostly writing at this point. And I'm just really, what I want to do is funnel our customers to you, because I think that they would get a much better education than what someone who has never, it's not my specialty. It's not what I'm good at. So I would just like to make ours a supplement, something that we can continue reviewing what they've learned in the Biblingo app. So, but I say start it as young as possible. Learn how to write the letters, learn how to, as you're learning in one language, learn them in the other, so your children just get those sounds together in their minds. And mom, if you're excited about it, you're learning it, your kids are going to learn it too. So you should start today. So, all right, Kirsten, do you have any other questions for us? All right. Do you have tips for learning language for families who do not like to use digital technology for their children until they are teenagers? That's a fair question. There's a lot of mess out on in the internet today.
Sure. So yeah. So, like, for example, my family, we lived in El Paso, Texas for 3 years, which was right next to Mexico, right next to Ciudad Juarez, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the Western Hemisphere. So it was funny being in the safest place. El Paso is statistically very safe, and then Juarez, unfortunately, it's very bad with the cartels and things like that. But we were going to Spanish church and constantly around Spanish. So if digital technology is not going to be an option for you, you need to have some way for them to get that input, whether that is through play dates, or whether it's a church or congregation that you go to. They just need to be around that language in a comprehensible way. So like I said, if you just play like Hebrew songs in the background, they might become attuned to the sounds of the language, but they're not actually going to be learning things. That's why a play date is so important, because children are learning, like that the ball is pelota because the person grabbed it and they are running around with it. So now I know what that is. So that is primarily what I would suggest. If digital technology is not an option, you just have to do a living speaker approach and find speakers to interact with.
Absolutely, I agree. And maybe for those of you that are here, if you want to go into one of the communities that we've been talking about, our Facebook group or our community at Homeschooling Torah, or Discord or any of those, and I know that's technology, but you as parents go in and start sharing some of I know you guys have Hebrew playlists. I know you do. What music do you listen to on Shabbat? I mean, I have multiple playlists. Our family has a playlist of music we listen to every Erev Shabbat. As soon as we sit down for the meal, we turn that music on, and now it feels like Sabbath. And so you guys start sharing those resources with each other. But even throughout the curriculum at Homeschooling Torah, as we're studying through the Torah portions together, and in the journals for each of the ages, they are learning to write the name of the Torah portion and pronounce it. And if you're not sure how to pronounce it, come into one of those groups, and we'll put a recording of how to say it, or just Google it, Google Translate even. But he is correct. Not only for Hebrew learning, but we need to have community. We should not be lone rangers in our walk of faith or in any other way. We need each other. And if you don't have physical presence, you need to reach out online as adults. You can filter the digital problems, and then you can then pass it on to your children. So yeah, don't be alone in your walk. That is a dangerous place to be. So any other questions, Kirsten? How do you suggest I love this. How do we suggest we try to learn Hebrew and Greek at the same time? This is me and my husband. He's much more proficient at Greek. So do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So like one thing, this is kind of like a little historical gloss, but originally in America, bilingual education was very looked down upon because some of the literature suggested it took longer for children to speak. Than just a student who learned or spoke one language at home, which can be true. But what it didn't factor in was that with consistency, it all levels out, eventually. So it's not like going to cause any kind of irreparable damage to a child if they, like my children have been exposed to 4 languages, like spoken to them daily since they were born. And, my daughter can speak all of them at differing levels, but I mean, she communicates perfectly fine in English and Spanish and Greek. She doesn't speak in Italian as much because of, I'm working, so I don't have 12 hours a day to talk with her like my wife does. But with Greek and Hebrew, the only barrier is actually going to be just time that you have. So people like to make Hebrew sound very scary because it's not an Indo-European language like Greek and English. It's a Semitic language, and the alphabet is read from right to left. The only thing when it comes to language learning is obviously just going to be time. Some languages are a little bit different with their grammatical structure, or like Chinese is a tonal language, but that's not really the case with Greek and Hebrew. So the only suggestion I would do is just make a consistent schedule and just stick to it. If you just consistently are doing those Hebrew and Greek lessons every day, you are going to be developing proficiency in the biblical languages. I never suggest to just focus on one, because you could be learning both simultaneously, and maybe that stresses people out a little bit, but in the end I think people will definitely say like, hey, that was worth it, because they saved themselves a bunch of time and getting that neuroplasticity back. For people who are bordering on elderly years, there's literature that suggests it does offset dementia if they're learning languages into those years. So don't be afraid to do both at the same time.
Absolutely true. I mean, I've had the same question for children that are coming in and learning English, and they're learning print and cursive, because that's what we do in kindergarten for Homeschooling Torah. We teach them both from the beginning: print, cursive, and the alphabet side by side. 3 kind of languages, at least 3 different ways of writing. Sure, add some more. And we have a lot of Hispanic customers, so they're also doing Spanish at home, and English is a second language, and then Hebrew, and then cursive and Greek, and who knows what else. Let's do it. Let's be well-educated believers. Let the world look at us as believers and say, you know what, they're excellent in everything they put their hand to. And it's a mark. If you go into the book of Exodus, and you see, as they were building the tabernacle, they were filled with the Holy Spirit, and it was evidenced by the good job they did and everything. They were incredible, talented artisans, and we need to develop that excellence in our children, and not be like, we can just get by with the minimum. Let's raise the bar. Let's see how well educated we can get this generation to be. So, okay, Kirsten, are there more questions? I think yes, she had. I thought I saw this one. And this one is referring to the Biblingo app. Is there an easier way to go back and read the textbook without going back into each little lesson? That's a great question.
Yeah, so eventually, I believe that the textbook is actually going to be available for just purchase, like a physical copy. So that would be an option for sure, where you don't have to go into each lesson. But so the way the textbook works is it's just basic. It's just the Biblingo textbook. So it's just building off of whatever they are doing. Like chapter one is associated with what they're learning in level one, and so on and so forth. So that would be a good option. I believe I'd have to check. I don't know for sure if the Hebrew is done. For everyone, this is my second month in this role, so I'm still
Yeah, I
learning
should
a
have
lot.
said that.
So no, it's all good. But I do think eventually that will be available. But I will get back to Jordan. If you email me at austin@biblingo.com, I will get that answer for you, so that you can know what to do.
Pretty cool. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we appreciate all of this. We appreciate your willingness to come on today and join us in this session. And I'm excited. And for our Homeschooling Torah members, just remember that First Peter, or 2 Peter 2 verse, I'm messing it up. The verse that says his divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness. That's the verse I'm trying to say. That the scriptures are sufficient, but we have to know them. We have to be in them. We have to be reading them in our language, and to try to dig in and really get to know what was the Father saying in his word, and then live it out in our actions every day. That's the point of this. The point of this is not just to educate our children, but to send them out into the world equipped to serve him. Seek his kingdom first, and then all these things will be added to you. So we want to make his word our primary focus, but not just because we want to be smart, but because we want to please him in our actions and in everything that we do and say. And that will be a testimony to the world. We can share Yeshua better. We can be bilingual culturally with the people around us. Get to know your neighbors, get to know them. And in the same way, you get to know a language, get to know the people around you. And how can I minister to them? How can I speak their language so that they understand? It's not a competition where we say, I'm so smart and you are so dumb. I know more about the Bible than you do. No, it's about showing love to those people that the Father sent his son to die for. And we need to reach out to them. So use these principles that you are doing for homeschooling, but don't isolate yourself. Get out there and be part of the culture, be part of the world, get to know others, go online to YouTube, get your family integrated into Hebrew, hearing the music, but also let's think about why we are doing this. What is the goal? What's the motivation for what you're doing? And pass that on to your children so that they're not like, well, this is just a subject mom has decided she's on a kick on this year and we're going to do Hebrew. No, communicate why this is important to them and help them to catch that vision and run with it. And I think that really is the key. And that's how you're going to make it a part of who you are. And Austin, watching you teach it to your children, I can see that passion for it in your home. And so I know that's something that you are totally on board with, that there's a reason we have these children and we have just such a short time to do it. So there, I got on my soapbox. So anything you want to say in conclusion, and then we'll let everyone go.
No, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for having me. And I'm really excited to see all the good fruit that will come out of this, because unfortunately, I feel like Greek and Hebrew learning has kind of just not been a big thing culturally in Christianity, Messianic Judaism. I mean, for Messianic Judaism, I get people who do the bar and bat mitzvah, they want to be able to read. But I just, in general, if we talk about the body of Christ and Messiah, just from back when it all started till now, it's not really been a big thing. And now we are literally able to learn the Bible in the original languages. So I want, just like how the Jewish community, they have a pride in who they are and their scripture, like we need to adopt that as well. And just, because, look, they've been exiled amongst all the nations for over 2,000 years. And I know now that Israel's a country again, it's a bit different, but for 19 or a little under 1900 years, they've been able to keep it going. So I mean, imagine what we would be able to accomplish, with a lot more resources and a lot more at our disposal. And just like even just thinking of the Apostle Paul, I mean, at a time without technology, he was reading and writing and speaking in Greek and in Aramaic, and had to, studied under Rabban Gamaliel, and for his Hebrew studies. And so all of these things, it seemed hard for us in our modern day, but it really isn't. It's just not culturally something we're familiar with, of being multilingual. So I'm really excited to see all the good fruit that will come of this. And yes, if anyone has any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to me at austin@biblingo.com, and I'd be happy to meet with you and work with you on how you could integrate the biblical languages into your homeschool. And thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to take a break for lunch. We're going to go get ourselves and go check out Biblingo while you're on your break. You're going to be sitting and eating your sandwich and scrolling over to their website. And don't forget, you can go to our goodie bag, and there is a coupon code that you can use there. But if you are a member of Homeschooling Torah, don't use that coupon code. Go to your bonus page under your resources and get an even better deal that is just for you guys. And at 2 p.m., we'll be back with Mom Wisdom we're going to have Heidi Cooper from Torah Family Living and Shane Brock from Fruitful Seasons Birth. And I'm excited to hear what they have to share today. And then tonight at 7 p.m., we'll be back for our last session on how to integrate the Torah into not just your homeschooling, but your entire life. And that's going to be kind of our end for this conference. So I hope you'll make that a priority to get back with us. So we'll see you all in just a little bit. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom, todah.